Today's game is Panzer Dragoon, which is a Japanese rail shooter. On the CD art, the title is actually written in katakana, so it's correctly pronounced Panzer Dragoon. And it was made in 1995. It was one of the 6 launch title games for the Sega Saturn. It was the debut title of Sega's Team AM6, sometimes called Andromeda, which was the code that was used to make a lot of the Sega Saturn games. AM6 produced 3 Panzer Dragoon games before the studio was dissolved and repurposed as Smilebit in 1998, which made games like Jet Set Radio. It was repurposed again in 2004 to Sega Sports Japan, which now basically makes Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. The Panzer Dragoon game was directed by a 25-year-old at the time, Yukio Futatsugi, who basically went on to make the second part and the very, very collectible Panzer Dragoon Saga. I'm going to skip this cutscene because the levels are about 5 minutes apiece and they're also incredibly hard. You're probably going to see me make many mistakes and die, but let's give it a go. So what I like about this game is you can actually adjust the camera angle 360 degrees and parts of the level depend on it. I'll try and do it now, but I'm very bad at this. Okay, and once again, there we go. So we just got to go along and shoot these things as we go. You don't get much independence in terms of direction. You go where it takes you. It's a rail shooter. But the interesting thing is that the plot of this game develops through the game using the in-game graphics as opposed to cutscenes using CGI. I think this is one of the very first 3D-based games where it actually does this. And I know that games like, for example, the Final Fantasy saga took considerably longer to actually get rid of the CGI cutscenes. I don't think it was until we reached the PlayStation 2's Final Fantasy X that Square Enix felt confident enough to do the same thing. But to be honest, yeah, you can see it's aged considerably, but for the time this was quite groundbreaking stuff. I'm going to be quiet in a moment so you can hear the soundtrack. It was written by a guy called Yoshitaka Azuma, oh crikey, I'm doing terribly, by Yoshitaka Azuma, and he basically only really wrote stuff for the Panzer Dragoon saga, which seems an awful shame, like a missed opportunity, because as you're going to hear, it's very symphonic and it's very beautiful. It's very uncommon to have a lush symphonic soundtrack for an early CD-based game, so this is quite cool and quite unusual. So yeah, I mean, the draw distance isn't wonderful, but actually at the time it was technically groundbreaking. It was also very divisive. The director Steven Spielberg actually made a point of going to the development team and congratulating them after a demonstration presentation in the 1995 E3 Games show. It's not looked upon so favourably by retroactive reviewers. OneUp.com made a review where they said this was basically like Space Harrier in 3D with nice music and cutscenes. Whilst I don't totally disagree, I think it's a bit more than that, and this was a platform-defining game. So with the last minute, I'm just going to quickly get into this building, and that's the end of the first part of the level. And I'm just going to be quiet and let you enjoy the level and the soundtrack. I think we're about to get our boss.